Hey, how's it going everyone? I'm White Pointer, and F-Zero has been a long dormant franchise for Nintendo that they don't seem to have any interest in resurrecting, despite constant pleas from the fans to do so. Even though the first game was an iconic launch title for the Super Nintendo, that the last console release, F-Zero GX, was critically acclaimed, and that series protagonist Captain Falcon has been a fan favourite character in the Super Smash Bros. Series for a long time, the best we've got is some F-Zero content for Mario Kart 8. The three main entries in the series to date are F-Zero on the SNES, F-Zero X on the Nintendo 64, and F-Zero GX on the GameCube, and most of you gamers, I'd wager, will be familiar with these games. You may even be familiar with the arcade counterpart to F-Zero GX called F-Zero AX. But how many of you realise that before the series went into hibernation, that it also appeared on the Game Boy Advance? And not just with one entry either, but multiple games. That's what this video is about, so let's get into it. The first of these was actually a launch title for the GBA in 2001, called F-Zero Maximum Velocity. As you can see, this game looks fantastic, with the action flying along at 60 frames per second without skipping a beat. It looks very similar to the Mode 7 seen in the original game on the Super Nintendo, but the GBA didn't actually have a Mode 7, so the effect here is pulled off in a different way that utilises the GBA's unique hardware. It does a great job of providing a true sense of the speed that these machines are travelling at. Each vehicle is also 3D rendered and given some nice little animations for some cool attention to detail. Gameplay wise, it's actually pretty different from F-Zero X that precedes it, and returns to the roots of the original game. You still have a power meter in the top right of the screen there that's not actually used for boost and is purely just a health bar, which depletes whenever you collide with something, but can be replenished by driving over the green strips that appear on every track. However, these recharge strips generally only appear once per lap, and replenish power quite slowly, meaning you can't be careless. Boosts are instead a finite resource, where you're given one with every lap you complete, and you can hold a maximum of 3, shown in the bottom right of the screen. However, there's basically no reason to accumulate them, and you should use them on every lap you have them available. The game controls also very similarly to the original game, though there are some advanced techniques you need to learn if you want to compete on the higher difficulties. Like the previous games, you lose a machine if the health fully depletes, you crash off track, or you rank out by being too many places behind when you cross the line. You'll need to finish in the top 3 to progress to the next race. There's a total of 10 vehicles in the game, with only 4 of those being available initially and the rest being unlockable as you successfully complete the Grand Prix modes on the various difficulties. Each car has its own unique stats that do make a big difference, and which ones you prefer will depend on how you like to drive. I personally preferred the cars with a high balance stat. There are 4 cups: Pawn, Knight, Bishop and Queen, with 5 tracks in each for a total of 20, plus there's an additional championship circuit to bring the total to 21. Each of these cups also has 4 difficulty levels: Beginner, Standard, Expert and Master. In terms of modes, it's pretty bare bones though. There's just Grand Prix and training really. That's about it. As good as Maximum Velocity looks and plays, I did have one major complaint with the game, and that's the AI of the computer controlled bots. They don't really seem to grasp the concept of driving around you, and prefer to try to drive through you instead, and this only gets worse as you play the harder difficulties. Even if you're driving in a perfectly straight line minding your own business, they whack straight into you, often multiple times. This not only damages your machine, but also pushes you off the racing line to make you collide with walls, other racers, or track obstacles to cause even more grief. Speaking of track obstacles, the game also likes to place random bombs on the circuit as the race progresses, making it feel more like Mario Kart at times, though if you're skilled enough you can actually use these to boost your speed rather than slow you down. The rubber banding, especially on the Expert and Master difficulties, is also ridiculous, as I've seen speedruns of players that should by all rights be winning by half a lap, but their rivals are less than half a second behind them the entire time, even when boost jumping to skip over large sections of the track. There's also, in my opinion, too many vehicles on the track. The slowest ones are the yellow and green cars, and they move at a comparative snail's pace to the front runners, as you can begin lapping them as early as the second lap of the race, which is insanely dumb. They aren't even fast enough to land some of the jumps in the game, and you'll sometimes see them fall short and crash, and unfortunately, they just respawn when that happens rather than being removed from the race. By the 4th and 5th laps, it's not uncommon for you to encounter 2 or 3 of them on the same part of the track at once, and they become stupid moving hazards that often seem to deliberately move right across in front of you or turn into you as you are trying to pass them. This can often have dire consequences, like this example, where I'm driving straight to hit a jump and the AI cuts across in front of me at the last possible moment, colliding with me just as I'm taking the jump, causing me to crash off track and fail the race. Situations like this are unfortunately all too common, and I often found myself supremely frustrated that my runs were being ended not through my own fault, but because of the stupid AI. Despite that flaw though, I think Maximum Velocity is still a pretty good addition to the F-Zero series and is worth playing. If you have an itch for classic F-Zero that needs scratching, then this will do the job. The second game on the GBA was released 2 years later in 2003 and called F-Zero GP Legend, which is actually based on the anime that carries the same name and seems to use the same engine as Maximum Velocity, although the cars have a different kind of art style to them. By this time, the critically acclaimed F-Zero GX had been released on the GameCube, and the gameplay of this one is a continuation of that formula that was established in F-Zero X. Your power meter in the top right is also your boost meter, and after the first lap it is enabled for you to use as much as you want so long as you have enough power. It's still also a health bar, so you need to balance your boost to make sure you don't crash out. To accommodate the dual function, the green recharge strips are usually placed in a few different locations around the lap and recharge your power pretty quickly, giving you plenty of opportunity to fire off your boosts. GP Legend also brings back the side attack that can be used to damage opposing machines, though it's often better used to assist you in getting around some of the really tight corners. What's also nice about this game is that it actually adds an announcer that counts down the race start, provides lap updates, tells you when you have boost available, announces your final placement, confirms menu options, and more. This was lacking in Maximum Velocity, and you really notice it when it's not there. It's funny how seemingly small things like this make a big difference to the game experience. A big addition to GP Legend is that it brings back the story mode that debuted in GX, but it's done a bit differently here. Instead of just focusing on Captain Falcon's story, the game is fleshed out with 8 different character arcs to play through, each containing 5 or 6 missions that have varying goals, so you're not just always in a straightforward race. Many of these are relatively uncomplicated once you have a handle on things, but some are actually very challenging too. Before and after each mission, there are some cool little cutscenes that play that show the characters disputing something, which can apparently only be solved by having a race, although some of these are repeated as the different story arcs intersect with each other. It isn't anything that's particularly deep or memorable, but it's still a nice feature. In fact, content is the best way to describe GP Legend. It's amazing how much they managed to squeeze into a GBA cartridge, and it honestly makes Maximum Velocity look rather paltry in comparison. For starters, there's an incredible 34 vehicles to choose from here, which you'll gradually unlock as you play through the game's various modes, more than 3 times what was offered in the previous game. You'd think with so many cars there would be some overlap too, but that's not the case, as they all have varying levels of speed, acceleration, grip, weight, body strength, boost, handling, cornering, and more. And on top of that, before starting a race, you can even adjust the acceleration to top speed ratio, so you can fine tweak these values depending on the circuit. No matter what driving style you prefer, you should find the car and setup to suit you. Having said that, some cars are definitely better than others, and I found the ones with low grip or poor turning to be pretty terrible. Speaking of circuits, in Grand Prix mode there are 3 difficulties, each containing 4 cups: Bronze, Silver and Gold, which contain 5 tracks each, and Platinum, which contains 8 tracks. On top of that, there are some extra circuits that occasionally replace others during GP mode, there's an extra championship circuit, and there's even a few point-to-point tracks exclusive to the story mode. Some of the circuits even have harder variations as you progress up the difficulty levels, which could be small things like adding extra obstacles or removing boost pads or recharge strips, and other times they may be more drastic, like adding extra corners or a mirror configuration. In total, there will be well over 40 tracks in GP Legend. And on the subject of GP mode, it is now structured more like an actual Grand Prix championship. Instead of needing to finish in the top 3 each race, you now score points based on your finishing position, and you win the championship if you have the most points after all the races are completed. In addition to the story mode, Grand Prix mode, time trials and training modes, there's also a new Zero Test mode. These are a series of 48 time trials, where you're given a specific car and must traverse a lap or a specific section of a lap within a certain time. They're split into 4 general difficulties or classes, though the actual difficulty is a bit inconsistent as some of the challenges in Class A and Class B are harder than many in Class S. But regardless, it's more content and it's very welcome. Most importantly, I had a lot more fun in GP Legend than I did in Maximum Velocity, because there's no slow AI races you need to deal with. How about that? It actually doesn't matter how fast you go, you'll never encounter backmarkers in this game. I understand that this may actually be due to a technical restriction on how many races can be on the screen at once, but regardless of the reason, I found it very welcome to not need to deal with them and just concentrate on racing. And even the front-running AI opponents, while still pretty relentless on the higher difficulties, seem to be a bit smarter and will at least try to drive around you rather than slamming into you. For that reason alone, I would easily recommend GP Legend over Maximum Velocity, but you throw all of the incredible additional content into it and it's a no-brainer. This is the superior of the 2 F-Zero GBA games that had an English release, and you need to play it. Hang on, why did I say that had an English release, you may be asking right now? Because there was actually a third F-Zero game released on the GBA, but unfortunately it was exclusive to Japan and has never been officially localized. This was called F-Zero Climax, released just a year after GP Legend in 2004, and was the last entry in the entire franchise before it went on hiatus. There is, however, a fan translation patch that has been completed fairly recently, so now you can finally play this game in English. Climax features even more vehicles and characters and even more circuits than ever before, though a number of circuits have been recycled from GP Legend, so not all of them are new. Grand Prix and time trial modes are here of course, and the Zero Test mode returns as well. New to this game is Survival mode, which challenges you to complete a series of increasingly difficult missions, which can vary in objective from a straightforward race, to a drag race, to a slalom challenge, or even a braking challenge. Successfully finishing these unlocks a random chapter of the storyline. Unfortunately, this time around the story is really just that, a text story. It's not actually a story mode like GP Legend had, because there's no gameplay or cutscenes to accompany it, so this is a bit disappointing. However, you can unlock full character profiles that give you a lot of information on each character and also the machine they pilot that expands on the F-Zero universe lore if you're into it. Climax even has a track editor that allows you to create your own tracks. It's fairly basic, but still robust enough for you to make some pretty creative circuits. It gets the job done nicely, but this feature wouldn't be any good if you couldn't share those tracks with friends, so it's a good thing you can. You can use the link cable or output a password which would generate the track automatically for anyone that inputs it into their game, so you can post it online for others to try out, which is a really neat idea. You can even watch the AI race on your new creation and pan the camera around or switch which car you're tracking. It's a great feature, and Climax is the only game in the series to date that has something like this built into the base game. Gameplay wise, it's pretty similar to GP Legend in a lot of ways, but does add a few new mechanics to change things up. The spin attack from X and GX makes its return here, and now you can also execute a spin boost. The game also basically combines both boost methods from the previous games. The power meter is your boost meter that's activated after one lap, but you'll also gain a boost icon in the bottom right after each lap. What this allows you to do is pull off a max boost by stacking 2 boosts together to supercharge your boost. You can pretty much only use this once per lap, but when you do, be prepared for
ludicrous speed! Go!
If you liked GP Legend, you'll probably like Climax, as it acts almost like an expansion pack of sorts. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't need to, and the new features it adds are pretty cool. if you can get your hands on it and the translation patch, it's definitely worth it. So that's it. Those are all of the F-Zero games released for the Game Boy Advance. This video turned out to take a lot longer than I initially thought it would to put together, and is also a bit longer than I initially planned, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, it really helps a lot, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with my content. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.